Okay, good morning, everybody. Today is March 15th, and there seems to be quite a bit going on in the world, as always, on Mondays. So let's just go right to it. So, right after Biden has come out and signed, the new piece of legislation last week for $1.9 trillion, follows up with less than three, I guess, on Monday. So this was signed on the 11th. Today's the 15th. So 4 days later, Biden is announcing that he wants to raise taxes. Should this come as a shock to everybody? That's a good question. So $1.9 trillion, the public gets about 30% of that. States that have been failing us get $350 billion, primarily Democrat-controlled states that were basically squandering the money for all these years. They get a bailout at taxpayers' expense, the federal taxpayers, that is. And so states that are doing the right thing end up being penalized. And now today he's coming out and saying he wants to raise taxes in his next spending bill to pay for infrastructure, as so goes the course. So a couple of the highlights from this tax increase that he wants to pass through: corporate taxes would go up to 28% from 21%. And by the way, this would be the largest tax increase since 1993. And right now, the Republicans are doing such a lousy job of stopping anything and getting anybody to getting any defectors from the Democrat side of the aisle that there's a good chance that this is going to pass. So just keep that in mind, and you should look into it, especially if you're a business owner or you have money in the markets, because tax policy does impact valuations. So that's extremely important to remember. LLCs, LLPs, they're going to change the pass-through, rules on that. So my guess is individual tax rates will go up with that as well. In terms of individuals that are making over $400,000 a year, their income tax rates will go up. There's something about estate taxes being increased, and I'm not sure what that threshold is. Maybe it's mega estates, which I wouldn't be opposed if there was an estate tax on estates that were north of $50 million, because those are the ones, the 1/10 of 1% or 1 in 1,000, that really control the economy, and they're kind of running away with the game and trying to turn this into a crony capitalist type of structure. So I'm not sure what those estate taxes look like and what levels they'll start to change them, but that's something to look into. People who make over $1 million a year, they're going to pay a higher capital gains tax rate. Don't buy the argument, folks, that if you increase the taxes on the super wealthy, it flows down and trickles down. Look, my son's middle name is Reagan. Okay, I loved Ronald Reagan, but I got to tell you, trickle down economics, while some of it does, conceptually work, people that have past a certain amount of wealth, I'm talking about the super wealthy. I'm not talking about people worth, $5 million to 25 million, $50 million. Those are really wealthy people. I'm talking about the ultra wealthy, the people that the opening bid is 50 million. There's only one out of every 1,000 American families that has that kind of wealth. And what's happening, if you look at the numbers over the past 20 to 40 years, those ultra wealthy, if you want to call them, that's why they're called ultra high net worth family offices. This isn't a coincidence, folks, but those are the individuals that are distorting capitalism. And how are they distorting it? Well, because their chip stack is so big, they can set up and back companies that destroy small and medium-sized businesses because they can run things at a loss. It's like they literally bleed out the competition. Now, keep in mind that there's laws on the books in the United States that are supposed to prevent this from the 1920s and 30s and so forth. that aren't being followed. And so this is supposed to be against the law, and it's been against the law, but the laws are not being enforced. So we have a twofold problem. You have runaway wealth and the laws not being enforced for predatory capitalism, which is what's been occurring in this country for at least 20 years, coinciding with the United States letting China enter the World Trade Organization. So this is an extremely complex topic. I'll try to break it apart maybe in other types of videos and maybe discuss some of these laws that are on the books. I'm not making this up, folks. You can look into it yourself. Go look up antitrust laws and when they were passed about price discrimination. I know it sounds kind of crazy, right? You think about discrimination, we get sold, anyways, that's a whole different thing on discrimination. But you can't offer different types of prices to different people. Everybody's entitled to the same price. However, online companies are price discriminating all the time based on your individual attributes that they can charge you more than somebody else. They gladly do it. And, they're manipulating the laws that were meant to protect consumers to continue to accrue power. And, and it's these individuals that are doing this are the ones in the ultra high net worth camp, because they understand these rules better than everybody else, because they have the resources to pay and identify how to bend these rules or use them to their advantage. And frankly, they can afford to hire all these people that can figure this stuff out. I went to graduate school at Kellogg, and they would probably gladly want to pay me to go do this on their behalf. And I've had offers in the past, but I have no interest in doing those types of things. But don't kid yourself. There's a bunch of people with skill sets similar to mine that will take the bid, and they can make 7 figures or more to figure out how to do this stuff. And I'm just telling you, this is the environment that we live in. So we have a choice. We either have to step up and get educated on this stuff, or they're going to continue to rip the game away from us. And I'm talking about the entrepreneurship class of this country, talking about all the people that are worth, everybody worth up to 99.9% of the population. I'm talking about the 99.9% of the population. I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for the 1/10 of 1%, because I think that there's too many in that group that have lost their way, as far as I'm concerned, and they're doing things for the wrong reasons. And maybe I'm being too harsh, but that's how I feel. Stripe is a company that is competing with PayPal. It came out and they're saying it's at $95 billion valuation on the latest capital raise. I'm not sure when it's going to be going public, but this company was worth like $30 billion a year ago, so it's almost tripled. Why am I bringing up Stripe? Because once again, some of these companies, when they're going public at these valuations, and I'm not giving any financial advice of whether or not you should buy or sell. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. This is strictly educational purposes, but I want you to think about these things before you put your money on the line in investments. If you have an idea and you turn around and get someone to give you some money for that idea, and next thing you know, you take that information and you create a company around it and you go public. If you can get people to buy your stock and you can continue to issue more stock, it's the only legal way in the United States to print money. You can literally print stock certificates that pull people's money in, increase the valuation, and then use that stock to become a currency in the economy and purchase real assets. I'm telling you this because when you're buying things and you kind of push things up, sometimes when those valuations get pushed up, it's a tricky situation. It depends if the company uses that higher valuation to go into the real world and start acquiring companies, they can lock in those gains. They fail to do so, the stock can come down pretty hard. There's a lot of companies manipulating the process. This goes back to 99 and 2000, where they're only issuing 5 to 10% of the shares outstanding. And that creates an artificial demand, which drives assets possibly up. It can, okay? I'm not saying it always does. I'm just saying that you should be wary, because the analogy I would give you is, imagine if your house was worth, 100, let's just say your house is worth $200,000. Keep it simple. I just want to say 200,000. And all of a sudden you sold off 5% of your house for 10,000. So you sold people 5% of your house for $10,000. And then the people that bought that piece from you, they bought 5%. They have a right to 5% of your house. They start buying it and selling it among each other, other friends and stuff. And they convince somebody to pay, for that $10,000. They convince somebody to give them, $15,000 for that 5% of your house. So now all of a sudden your house is worth $300,000 because the valuation gets struck off of the marginal $10,000. So then you're like, holy cow, my house is worth 50% more, but only a sliver of it changed hands. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, this, maybe this house has got something special underneath it or something. So then people bid that 10,000 up to 20,000. So now your house is worth 400,000. You didn't do anything. You're just literally, you sold a piece of it, and everybody's excited about the fact that you sold a piece of your house. And then all of a sudden people are like, you know what? I got to just keep buying it. This house is going to be the best. And they pay $50,000. So it went up fivefold. Now your house is worth $1 million. Now you might start to get delusional and think that your house is really worth $1 million because somebody paid $50,000 for, 5% of your 5% of your $200,000 house. And you're like, well, of course it's worth $1 million. And now keep in mind, folks, sometimes these things are accurate. Okay. I'm just telling you, you should be wary and you should look at what makes sense logically and understand why the valuations are changing or how they can be so distorted so fast. You have to look at how much of it is trading and then make sure that it makes logical sense before you do something. And so be wary of that with every company, is what I would say. Any publicly traded company, any company about to go public, any private deals, you have to look at how much of it's traded hand in the real economy. Okay, so that's that. Let's go to SpaceX and Mr. Musk. Maybe this is why some people are signing in. So Elon Musk, you can go to sec.gov, and this kind of hit the wires a couple hours ago. He changed his name. He added a title. He didn't change his title. He's still the chief executive officer of Tesla, but now he's also the tech-knocking person of Tesla. So what does tech-knocking mean? That's a good question. So people are like, why is he changing his name to tech-knocking of Tesla? And I looked it up. You can look it up yourself as well. The root of the word knocking. And you'll find that the word is also to knock, knock, like knock on the door, to pound, to beat. But what I think is a better synonym for the word knocking is hammer. And in Wall Street, one of the common phrases about someone who's exceptional at calling things one way or another about companies is they're called the hammer in the stock. And if somebody speaks and they're viewed as the strongest voice about understanding that company, they're the hammer. And we kind of go through life and there's different hammers in different professions. Well, basically Elon Musk is saying he is the tech hammer. Is that what that name means in my mind? Based on the root of the word and the synonyms, you say that like 10 times fast, synonyms of the word, he's basically saying, I am the tech hammer of Tesla. Okay? Now, he is. So he's not inaccurate with this statement. He's the CEO. He also is saying, I understand tech better than everybody in my company. Is essentially, it's an ego boost for him. Fine. Okay? Everybody knows he's a brilliant guy. He wants to be the tech hammer of Tesla. Okay. So now his CFO is calling, he had the chief financial officer, person in charge of all the books of Tesla. His new title, in addition to CFO, is the Master of Coin. Now, if anybody's watched Game of Thrones, which I highly recommend, is I'm not a big fan of the last season, but that's another conversation. Game of Thrones is absolutely outstanding. It's it actually relates a lot to the world today that we live in, and I'm more than happy to explain how it relates to the financial markets at some point. Because when I was watching that series, and maybe I should watch it again, I could not believe how many similarities there were to what's happening in global finance across the world that tie into Game of Thrones. Brilliant writing. These people are really tied it into what's happening in the world, and maybe that's why 1 billion people watched it. But I didn't watch it until after I think the whole series ended, and somehow I came across it at the library. I just rented the first season, and I was hooked after just the first episode. So I highly recommend Game of Thrones. But I'm bringing up Game of Thrones because the additional title for the CFO of Tesla is Master of Coin. So, there was a Master of Coin in the movie Game of Thrones. Now, what does that mean? So in my mind, I'm sitting there reading this, Master of Coin. What the heck are these guys up to at Tesla? I don't think this is a joke. I think they're really, it sounds like a joke that they named themselves these two titles, okay? On the surface, being in the markets, it's like, okay, Elon Musk is saying this. He's naming his CFO Master of Coin. Is this a hint? Are they telling us something? And so the first thing that comes to my mind, and once again, I have no proof of any of this. I'm not suggesting this is going to happen. Please do not take what I'm about to say as it's going to happen, folks. I'm not saying that at all. But there's a couple things I want to point out. The valuation of Tesla as of Friday's close, surprise, surprise, was about $666 billion. Now, a lot of people, there seems to be this gravitation that occurs between some players, and maybe this is how they signal. I have absolutely no idea. But I like to look and observe numbers that continue to show up, especially when they show up around major events. So 333 is one of those numbers, 3366, multiples of 3, right? And anybody who knows anything about Tesla, I'm not talking about the company, I'm talking about the person, Nikola Tesla. If you look into Nikola Tesla, he loved 3, 6, and 9. I mean, he loved that relationship. Go pull it up. It's fascinating. He was, Nikola Tesla, I do believe, maybe he just received his intelligence from a higher power or God but he was just superhumanly intelligent, like off the charts intelligent. And you should definitely look into him. In fact, that's a name I love that name, by the way, because of how absolutely intelligent Nikola Tesla was. But the valuation of Tesla as of Friday was $666 billion. Now, Master of Coin, in my mind, is maybe Tesla is going to create its own cryptocurrency. I don't know. I think that Master of Coin, and they bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Maybe they bought it to see if they can turn around and create their own currency. Like Tesla might create its own currency. It's maybe, I don't know. I'm just saying, why would you name yourself Master of Coin? Why would you name your CFO Master of Coin unless you're thinking of creating your own currency, like your own coin, your own Bitcoin equivalent at Tesla? So I think that this might actually happen. I don't know what the odds are, folks. Maybe it's 1 in 1,000. Maybe it's 1 in 100. Maybe, put it this way, I will be monitoring the situation to see if there's filings coming out about Tesla launching its own cryptocurrency. And the company was worth almost $1 trillion not too long ago. It's worth $666 billion now. Elon Musk is essentially, he's creating these neural links where, and I've watched a demonstration, you should pull it up on YouTube, where you have pigs, where you map out how pigs' brains behave when they're walking. Like they can literally map out what parts of a pig's brain are used when the pig is walking. This is extremely complex math, folks. And the fact that they could figure this out just imagine when these neural links are tied into, eventually they're going to come into people, I'm sure that's the goal. And, I don't know, that's a whole different conversation, from an ethical perspective and everything else. But, Elon Musk is in the middle of all this stuff. And I want to go to the next point. So now he's got his CFO as master of coin. Now, granted, he also controls SpaceX. Everybody's probably heard of SpaceX. SpaceX is satellites being launched into space, right? He's the one that bought the Russian satellite. He bought some old Russian rockets that he obviously didn't buy the nuclear weapon that was attached to the rocket, but a lot of people thought he was a little crazy when he wanted to do this because he was going to try to come up with a way to cut the cost of space travel. And sure enough, he succeeded. So NASA wants this person, Elon Musk, to turn around and I think they outsource some of their launches to SpaceX, which is unbelievable. So look, Elon Musk is absolutely brilliant. Okay, he's off the charts brilliant, people. I'm not knocking Mr. Musk for his intelligence and his ability to create. He's off the charts brilliant. What I'm concerned about is possibly dangerous things that happen as a result of this much power accruing within one private citizen. And maybe there's other forces that are pulling some of these strings. And that's what makes me nervous, because SpaceX is also tied to a company called Starlink. So Starlink is a company that wants to do broadband wireless access around the world and wants to offer that service. So if you think about it, folks, a couple years ago, President Trump signed into law the creation of the sixth branch of the U.S. military called Space Force. Now, Space Force is absolutely critical because in the past few days, we're learning, the American public is learning that our military and other forces have developed technology where they can manipulate our brain activity from space through satellites. Now, this sounds hokey pokey. I get it. But I've been reading about this stuff for years, and I do believe that we have this capability because our brains are electrical currents, and if you can change the frequency of how your brains operate, you could do a lot of stuff. And we have the computing technology now to figure out how to change the frequency in people's brains. Whether or not people want to admit this fact and they're in denial, that's a whole different conversation. But we have devices that basically give our geolocation, and maybe these satellites can turn around and send these signals down within a specific vicinity. And what I would suggest is do not sleep with your phone, because if you're tagged as somebody that they want to do some reprogramming to, your phone is by you. So I don't like to have my phone next to me at all, and I'm at the point where I don't know what to think about how bad it can get. But I'm saying is SpaceX launching all these satellites, Starlink wanting to go around planet Earth and give people broadband access. Well, if they give you broadband access, they know all this information about you. Well, maybe they're going to give you a little more than broadband access. And so I'm sitting there like, holy cow, this guy, Tesla, is gathering all the information in all of its vehicles and sending it up to the cloud. Everything about how you drive, where you go, the roads, all of that information is being collected, folks. They know everything about everything you do in your car, okay? There's a reason why Tesla is worth more than every other auto company combined, folks. And it's not because they just make cars. Tesla, and once again, I'm not making a judgment on what it's worth. I'm not talking about that, folks. Tesla is worth a lot of money because they have figured out how to turn cars into massive data collection centers. They collect so much information about the environment that they're in, which I believe this could be a national security risk. I've emailed the White House years ago about this. when President Trump was in office. I have no idea if it got to them, but my concern was, and this was when Tesla was first starting up, like doing this stuff, and I'm silly because I should have probably bought the stock and I didn't. But I kind of saw what they were doing, and it was extremely concerning to me, because what they're in the middle of, if they're ever compromised, if Tesla is ever compromised by the Chinese, by Russia, by some other nation, and they have all of this data about everybody who drove Teslas. Now, keep in mind, even if you do not drive a Tesla, the Tesla vehicle is recording everything in the environment. So it knows how our roads are constructed, traffic patterns, light systems, where the police departments are, fire, everything. It knows the flow of people. It knows the flow of our defenses. It knows when, how many people are basically going to work at the police department in the morning, how many people are going to the fire department, what are our troop movements possibly, like how is our military around our bases acting. This is dangerous and scary stuff, folks, that this one company on U.S. soil is collecting all of this data. And now, as they're collecting all this data, all this information on essentially the entire country, not just the United States, Tesla vehicles are going global. They're in Europe. I'm sure they're all over the world. These vehicles are everywhere. And so as a citizen, I'm extremely concerned. As an American, I think every nation should be concerned. We need to update our laws to make sure that this information that's being gathered is broken up before it can be weaponized against us. Because don't kid yourself, this is extremely dangerous. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. If you know how every human being in the country behaves and moves, and where they go get their donut every morning, if you're a cop, I guess, I'm just teasing. Maybe some people like a bagel instead. But if you go get your breakfast and your lunch, and they know, oh, Bobby goes to this place at lunch every time at 2:00. He's eating a late lunch on this day, folks. I drive a car with no GPS. I don't want to be monitored. I don't need to know this stuff about where I need to go. I'll figure it out on my own. I like to go old school. I don't trust any of these companies. I'm at the point now where I want a Faraday cage for my phone anywhere I'm at, because I think that this stuff is borderline. It could be used for evil purposes, and so as such, you got this master of coin. We got the tech hammer. So is this a sign? Is Elon Musk basically saying he's going to be the hammer on Earth when it comes to technology? He will know where you are through his satellite network worldwide. He will know where you're moving through his cars. He will know what you're thinking through his Neuralink implant into your head if you want to wire into the web. I don't know, folks. And then he wants to know exactly how you spend your money at all times, maybe through a new coin. So all I'm saying is, the Bible comes to mind when I hear all this. I'm not going to kid you. When I think about, the Bible and with regards to warnings about being chipped or being monitored on a lot of different levels, this is off the charts, concerning to me. And, I don't know what to say, folks, other than please start researching this stuff on your own. Use DuckDuckGo is what I would suggest, because then it's a better, I think it's a great search engine, and it brings you different results. Try different search engines, folks, and see for yourself how we're being censored and monitored. And you'll see what I'm talking about. I believe in hard books. I have over 1,000 books, and I think I might start buying more books because I do believe that they might start to change the language in our digital books. They can modify them. Especially if these books are in the cloud and you don't have them downloaded. Who's to say, even if you do have them downloaded and they're in some type of format, you don't read the book for 5 years, you go back and look at it, maybe they're going to change the language. I don't know. But this is what the technology is capable of. And if it's capable of that, you need to think about it and plan to make sure you don't get circumvented by it. So, please look into this. This isn't like, this isn't 5-10 years away. It's like happening like today. It's happening like right now. On March 15th, all these things I'm talking about, they're in progress, folks. This is happening like right now. And as such, since we're in the middle of it and it's happening right now, you need to start putting in the time as much as you got to learn about it. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, half hour a day. I'll do my best to kind of explain what I'm seeing and what some of these patterns and things mean to me. And feel free to share, my thoughts with your family and friends. You don't have to mention me. You can take credit for it. I don't really, at this point, I just want to get the word out that people start thinking about this stuff because, clearly our press is owned by people that don't have our best interests. A lot of media is owned. By the way, my last name is Piton. It's not with an N. Holly. It's Piton. But I like pin. Maybe I got a pinhead. Anyways, it's Python, like a spike used in mountain climbing. That's how I got my name. It's like my heritage is my family's from the mountains. And from Poland. But anyways, it's a French root, but it's a whole other conversation. But all I could say is please look into it, get involved in your own security, understanding of the world we live in, how this stuff can be weaponized against us, and when you can, try to de-risk. Part of de-risking is don't use some technologies that are underneath the surface, possibly stealing your rights and collecting ways to steal your rights in the future. So with that, this is a long broadcast. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. God bless you. God bless our nation. And, may peace be with you. And, and I'm going to say it, and I know I have an unconventional broadcast. If you don't have peace, if you do put God first in your life, I have no doubt that you will find peace, and that it will make a difference in every aspect of your life. Have a wonderful day. I'll be doing another broadcast at 4. And one other thing I want to mention: I had an incredible conversation with someone from China who's been in the United States for 35 years. Told me a lot of what the playbook was because he was a young man in China. He was an older gentleman. But he told me how communism had taken over China in the 50s and 60s. So it was a really cool thing for me to be able to speak with someone like that for over an hour. I was in D.C. last week for 4 days. I ran across this individual. God works in mysterious ways. He told me so much that I think that some of those insights might be helpful to people that want to understand what we need to do as a nation to take this country back. So have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.